Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer with the DRF Saturday race of the day. It's the Grade 2 $1 million Louisiana Derby. Let's take a look at this field of three-year-olds hoping to continue their quest to the first Saturday in May, Churchill Downs in the Kentucky Derby. We have a full field. You can access free Formulator Pass performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Download them and handicap along with us. We'll take the field in post-position order, beginning with the number 1, Walland, who finished third last time out in the Grade 2 Risen Star. Kind of a race that fell apart late, Mike. I look at this horse's pedigree. He's by successful appeal. He's a foal to a stakes-winning dirt miler named Isotopin. While he was rallying last time out at that shorter distance, A, I'm not sure if 1 1/8 is good for him, and B, I just hate his running style.
Yeah, right. And you just have to ask yourself, based off the last one, what's going to be different in this race? And there aren't that many things that are going to be different. He's got a similar inside post. He still has no speed, so he's going to be, at the back of this field at the top of the stretch and have to pass a bunch of horses. I just don't see that he's the kind of horse that you want to give that chance to, especially when he was 70-1 last time. And because he finished third in that race, he'll probably be a fraction of that price this time. To me, he's just really hard to make. Not that he has a ton of ground to make up.
A horse with a completely different running style thus far is the number 2, Lemniscate, who won his maiden last time out on the turf. It was his route debut, and I'm sure Kenny McPeak is hoping that it was the distance as much as the surface that contributed to Lemniscate's improvement. We'll take a look at the Timeform U.S. pace projector, and we're expecting this horse to be right up close to the pace, which might be fast. So it's a big step up in class. He might have to deal with a faster pace than expected this time around, and I'm not sure about the surface.
Yeah, I mean, he did get loose on the lead when he won that turf race last time, but he'd shown speed on the dirt prior to that and ran the fastest race of his life, so I suppose he's fine on this surface. At least he adds a little speed to this race, which is nice to see. I suspect he could make the lead from his inside post. Then it's just a question of whether you think he's good enough to go with these horses.
And the horse that beat him on dirt, you mentioned that 86 DRF for 2 starts back sprinting at Gulfstream Last Judgment for Pletcher. He came back to win last week at Oaklawn, a non-winners of one other than with an 84 Beyer speed figure. And there's a little bit of dirt, mostly a turf pedigree, but a little bit of dirt on the bottom side of this pedigree. Now, talk about a turf pedigree. The 3 Limonite, I can't wait till he eventually gets to the lawn. He's by Lemon Drop Kid. The dam was a multiple Group 1 stakes winner on the turf in Brazil, and she's already thrown a Group 1 stakes winner on the turf in Brazil. Limonite, another horse, not a lot of early speed. He's going to have to be rallying late, but maybe he needed that last race.
Yeah, I mean, doing well enough on dirt right now for Asmussen to keep him on this surface for now, but I'm with you. I think maybe down the line turf will be his future. I'll say this about his 3-year-old debut in the Risen Star. If you wanted, just one horse who was trying to close in that race, you probably want him because he was off the layup, and I just felt like he just took the worst of it in the stretch, just sort of boxed in behind horses. He had a real tough time finding a place to run, and then when he got clear, it was way too late. He switches to Jose Ortiz for this. Maybe he can get a better trip and take a step forward.
The number 4 is Sueño, graded stakes placed in his last 2 races. Not bad for an ex-maiden claimer, and he goes out for a very shrewd trainer in Keith DeZormo. Now, he was second behind that giant bomb super steed in the Southwest, but I guess he was flattered somewhat when Long Range Toddy came back to win a division of the Rebel last week with a 95 Beyer, although we made the argument going into the Rebel that if you wanted to take a horse out of the Southwest, it was probably the troubled Long Range Toddy. But Sueño just looks like a horse that is on the improve, has the tactical speed to settle into a good spot in mid-pack, and can benefit from a fast pace. I'm expecting a good effort from this horse.
I mean, I agree with all those things. And it's interesting when you go back and watch the Southwest, too, because he got kind of a similar trick to Long Range Toddy, sort of stuck in behind through the second turn while the winner was making the outside move to take over that race. This horse did get clear a lot sooner than Long Range Toddy did, but he put in a run in that race. I thought he ran well. I think he could run well again here.
The 5 is By My Standards by the young stallion Golden Sense out of a multiple turf stakes winner. This horse overcame the far outside post to win his maiden last time out at the fairgrounds. I did not think much of the field he faced that day.
I mean, I didn't either, and it's not like he took a huge step forward in that race. He either just sort of ran a similar figure to what he'd been running prior to that race. He steps way up on class here and has to run him by a race.
The king of the local division looking for the sweep of the 3 major Kentucky Derby preps at the fairgrounds, the Grade 3 LeCompte, the Grade 2 Risen Star, and of course Saturday's race of the day, that's the number 6 War of Will. Just utterly dominant in his 3 dirt starts, and he's able to get good trips. He got a Bad post last time out. It didn't faze him at all. He broke running. He settled into second. He attacked on the turn, and he won under a drive. He beat 5 of these foes that day. We've got a Mark Casse formulator fact. It might allay fears if you believe there is a bounce coming. Over the past 2 years for War of Will, with 3-year-old last out winners on dirt, going third off the bench. 3 for 7, 5 out of 7 on the board. Big ROI, a couple of those races in stakes. Obviously the horse to beat.
Yeah, he is the horse to beat. I mean, it's really just all about his running style, to me anyway, because he, as you say, he can just make his own trip. Doesn't need the lead, but gets forward, and he's very comfortable tracking paces. I personally don't believe he's been particularly impressive in any of his dirt wins, but he's run fine in all of them. He's got the figures to suggest he's the horse to beat in here. He's going to get another good trip in this race. We'll see if he can. I'd like to see him just take a little step forward here, Dan, and maybe run a faster race, because I don't think his edge on some of these horses is so great that he just can show up and win. But he's clearly the horse to beat here.
The 7 is Mr. Money, another son of Golden Sense. The dam a half to a stakes-winning turf horse, but this is the family of Dubai World Cup winner Well Armed, and this horse ran a surprising 4th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile to close out his 2-year-old campaign, and I guess I can give him the Risen Star. He was bet down to 10-1 that day, tried to mid-move into a fast pace. Maybe this is the kind of horse with a more patient ride can sneak into the single race exotics at a giant price.
Yeah, he might be able to get a piece of this. It's interesting because I thought in that Risen Star last time, he was one of the interesting new faces in the race that maybe you could try to beat War of Will with. And I think he did run okay in that race, but once again, I think it's similar to the race he ran in the Breeders' Cup, where, as you say, he did run well. He made his move into the race, and then he just didn't finish that well. Now, maybe he needed that race off the layoff last time, if you want to give him that excuse, but I want to see him really finish going a distance of ground before I get behind him in races like this.
The key for the 8 Country House is whether he has figured out the starting gate. We saw him win his maiden at Gulfstream Park for Bill Mott, a race where he was probably 5 lengths slow, breaking from the inside post, and still went off to win by almost 5 lengths. And he was a bit of a buzz horse coming into the Risen Star, and he didn't break very well. He raced greenly in the stretch when it looked like for a brief instant at the 3/16 pole, he had a big shot at War of Will, then he kind of weaved a bit. He's obviously still learning, but there's also obvious talent.
Yeah, there really is obvious talent with him. He's just a work in progress still. He's got to get the gate figured out because you can't continue to break slowly, especially in races like this, and expect to win. And it's cost him dearly every time. If he can get out of the gate and get a trip in this race, he doesn't have that much ground to make up on War of Will. So it's really all about that for me. I know he didn't keep a straight course in the stretch last time, but I'm not going to worry about that too much because he hasn't really done that in the past. I think the 1 1/8 could actually help this horse. I think he's got the biggest chance to upset the favorite here.
Bank It, sort of a weird PP line. Speed horse in sprints, so they stretch him out, he becomes a 1-run closer, and I'm not sure that's really the right tactics to use for Bank It. I'm a little bit concerned about his ability to get the 1 1/8 based on his pedigree, but Asmussen keeps going, and you got to trust Steve in these races.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to just dismiss Asmussen in these races. They tend to show up and run. I'm with you, though. I really don't like this running style they developed for him as a router last time in the Southwest. I mean, they didn't even try to get this horse involved early. They took him back to last and let him make a wide run into the stretch. He really wasn't a threat in that race. He's got to run a lot better than that.
Irad Ortiz back aboard. He was on for the most recent win, that in the Sleepy Hollow, his 2-year-old finale. I wonder if Todd Pletcher's going to get the 10 spin-off to run a better race, second start as a 3-year-old. Very lightly raced horse, showed some ability at 2, finishing 3rd in the Grade 2 Saratoga Special before going to the sidelines with probable physical issues. This horse has a big pedigree. He's by Hard Spun. His dam won the Acorn, and his win at Tampa Bay was just basically a paid workout, but it was in slow time.
Yeah, he didn't get much of a figure for that race. Won it as easy, I guess, as you want to see him win a race like that. First time 2 turns, first time off the layoff. You know, he won that race as very much the best, and now he's just going to take on a much tougher test here. I don't love him, Dan, but I'm not going to be surprised if he's competitive in here. It's not like this is, you know, some field full of superstars. He fits right in with these horses, I think.
He's a half to the stakes place router rugby man. Nice pedigree. The 11's Hog Creek Hustle. Formulator fact for trainer Vicky Foley. Past 5 years, 3-year-olds on dirt off a short layoff. 31% winners, 278 ROI. This horse was 2nd in the Lecomte, 4th in the Risen Star. Really hasn't done anything wrong in his last few starts for this barn, but gets a lousy post position. And something tells me at the end of the day he's going to be a late-running 1-turn horse.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. And he's another horse, like a lot of the horses who've been running against War of Will down here. You know, you have to ask yourself, what's going to be different in this race? And I don't know that anything's going to be that different for him, except for the fact that now he's got a terrible post on the outside. He's going to have to overcome that.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby. Mike, you believe in Country House. If he figures out the gate, if he figures out what he's doing, it's quite possible he's the horse with the most upside in this race.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it, Dan. I mean, I'm not way against War of Will, but I don't think he's any kind of a layover in this race, so I'll try to beat him at a short price in this race. I thought Country House obviously had the best chance to take him down. The only other horse I would use is the 4 Swain. I thought those 2 horses were probably the most likely outsiders.
I agree about Swaino. I think he's going to run a good race. I just think with War of Will's running style, he's just going to probably find another good spot, perhaps sitting just off the pace of Lemniscate this time around. If the 10 spinoff wants to go, great. I don't think Todd's going to really want to engage those 2 horses for the lead, so it's possible War of Will draws a similar trip as last time, gets the jump on Country House, holds off the closers. Give me numbers.
Yeah, I went with the 8 on top over the 6 and the 4.
I'm going 6, 4, 8, and 1 in the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby. It's Saturday's race of the day, an approximate post time for race number 13 at the fairgrounds, 5:13 Central. Best of luck.